Welcome to Central News. I'm Wayne Douglas. In today's news, they came, they waved, they left, leaving tens of thousands of people captivated and gushing about the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. Rain didn't dampen the spirits of those waiting in Cambridge, who were rewarded with a royal walkabout. At the Avanti drone grand opening, Prince George stole the show, and he wasn't even in attendance when the Duchess of Cambridge, Kate, was presented with an Avanti starter bike and a Team New Zealand cycling jersey for her son, drawing oohs and ahs from the 2,500-strong crowd. She seemed genuinely rapt with the present, sharing a smile with her husband, Prince William. A minor mechanical fault fire in a fully laden petrol tanker travelling on the Kaimai Range is being described as a lucky escape by Greerton firefighters. The driver of the truck called firefighters about 1:45 a.m. when he witnessed flames coming from his truck and articulated trailer unit while travelling on State Highway 29. When firefighters arrived, the driver of the Hooker Pacific Fuel Haul Limited truck was standing on the side of the road waiting for the brigade and a mechanic to arrive as the motor had died. The fire was out on arrival and the brigade took no action. Submissions close at 4 p.m. this Thursday on Bay of Plenty Regional Council's draft annual plan for 2014-15, which sets out Council's key programs and projects for the coming year, how much they will cost and where the funding will come from. The proposed general rates rise means an average increase per property of $2 a year, depending on the location of the property, which is lower than the predicted increase due to savings made by implementing internal efficiencies, according to the Council. Council is proposing operating expenditure of $95.5 million, which would allow for more spending in specific areas such as water management, while reducing spending in other areas to reflect internal efficiency savings. University of Waikato Tauranga lecturer Nadine Bellum has graduated with her PhD, becoming the first student to have studied from undergraduate to doctorate level entirely at the university in Tauranga. Ms Bellum shares her milestones with Central News.
Okay, so the milestone that I'll be part of for the University of Waikato is that I am the first student on the Tauranga campus to have gone from undergraduate study right through to a PhD.
And in sport tonight, the Chiefs had a messy win against the Melbourne Rebels in Hamilton on Saturday night, 22-16. The Chiefs have only lost one of 7 matches and have continued to pick up competition points to be 5 points clear of the second-place Highlanders, with all Kiwi teams having now played 7 matches. The Chiefs host their fierce conference rivals, the Crusaders, this Saturday, again at the Waikato Stadium, with the hope that some of the injured players, including Brodie Retallick, who suffered a concussion in the Rebels game, being back to play. And despite a low-scoring first half, the Pero Cameron-coached Waikato Pistons improved rapidly in the second half to win against the Taranaki Mountaineers 84-62 that should be, at Hamilton Boys High School yesterday afternoon. The Pistons trailed 15-10 at the first break, but seemed to settle and ball movement became sharper on offence. The Pistons meet Taranaki again next week, before another home game on April the 26th against the Super City Rangers. And taking a look at the marine forecast now for Raglan, northeasterlies 25 knots, high tide 10:01 a.m. And over the hill to Tauranga, northeasterlies 15 knots, high tide is at 7:02 a.m. After the break, we find out about the Young Innovators Awards, and later on, we look at traumatic brain injuries. Welcome back to Central News. The Young Innovators Awards produced a number of success stories in 2013. We find out what's in store for 2014.
Okay, well, we had a fantastic launch last month, and our key partners, Priority One, Locus Research and Woods, the creative agency, all gave wonderful presentations and just gave all the people that were present an update on what was happening in 2014. We had over 70 people there from education. We had principals, YIA past students, teachers, and then from the business we had a number of representatives from key businesses in the region, as well as our key partners, who are the Plus Group Horticulture, Page McRae Engineering, Enterprise Angels, Bayfair, and more recently Creers New Zealand and Edge Tauranga. For students who want to know about this competition, we've got a very comprehensive website now, www.yia.co.nz, and everything is on that website. So you've just got to go on there, and we've also got a very active Facebook, so we'd love people to like us on that. We've got 350 likes at the moment. We love to have some more.
There is something a little different though this year.
Yes, this year we have an under 40 category, and in that category we're actually involving the Bay of Plenty Polytechnic tertiary students through their new design, creative industries design course, and I think also their science department as well. So we're really excited about that.
For those who don't know, what are the Young Innovators Awards?
The Young Innovator Award was created in 2009 to cultivate a culture of innovation within the region. So we wanted young people to understand what innovation meant and how important it is to the future of our region and indeed New Zealand. So we worked on this event, and we have actually got now the opportunity, students and people, to enter and either design a product or a service which considers sustainability, communication, creativity, and research, which was really key. And so those are the key markers or the judging criteria that we use for the competition.
Timothy, how would you explain innovative thinking, and how important do you think that skill is in the workplace?
It's pretty critical these days because there's so many different businesses that require it. So innovation's pretty much defined as being the process or how you actually do it. I mean, if you think about an invention as the idea, whereas innovation is a little bit like how do you actually execute that. So as Lynn just talked about, we've really looked at the criteria to be built around that sort of concept. So, you know, clearly you've got to research and understand what you do. You've got to be creative. You've got to be innovative, or you know, you've really got to look at how you actually do that well. And then the communication side of it and sustainability, something that particularly the students at their age, I mean, it needs to be embodied in everything that they do if you think about how products and services are going to be delivered into the future.
Do you think innovation is something that can be taught?
Yeah, I think it can be, and particularly because it's just about having an understanding. I mean, say in the context of what we do in our day-to-day jobs, a lot of what we provide people is some guidance on how to actually do it. Because there's a lot of pitfalls and traps. So if you understand the process, you can do it better, quicker, faster, you know, than you did it last time.
For the Everyday Joe blog, how would you explain good innovation?
That's a tricky question. It's probably, I mean, it's that process of developing something. And I mean, I think, you know, in general terms, it is being able to make money off something, you know, at the end of the day. I mean, it sounds kind of brutal, but, you know, you've got to be able to get a good idea and you've got to be able to develop it and put it into a market and get a return on it, because you've got to spend money and spend your time to do that. You know, there's nothing wrong with just being an inventor, but if you're going to be an innovator, then you've really got to be capable of, you know, doing all of those things that are required to get it from initial idea through to uptake in the market.
Is it fair to say then that innovation is the whole process?
Yeah, it is. I mean, innovation really encapsulates everything from initial research through, you know, how do you technically develop that idea? So that could include engineering, design, science, and then right through to, you know, how you're going to strategically launch it, which markets, channels you're going to choose. So it's really the whole thing.
That is a lot of skills for one person to have.
Yeah, I mean, you'll find that different people, entrepreneurs are the kind of people that will have a lot of different skills, whereas typically people that may work in businesses, they might be working on a particular aspect of it. But I think always if the students understand the whole process, it's better. So like, for instance, if you wanted to specialise in marketing, if you sort of have a perspective of what the whole process is about, then I think you'll have a better idea how to do your marketing component better.
So how can students get involved with the Young Innovators Walk?
Probably the most important thing is going to the YIA website and registering, because once you're registered we can communicate and tell you about important deadlines, events, things that are happening, and then probably once you've done that you can download the templates. So there's a very simple 4 templates that everybody uses to enter. So getting all of those from the website's the first thing, and then after that, you know, Facebook and all of the other avenues we've got, including Instagram this year, that will just enable you to be a part of the community that's forming around YA.
For more information on the awards, you can go to yia.co.nz. After the break, a new study in the Waikato on traumatic brain injury. Welcome back to Central News. Researchers from the University of Waikato and AUT have joined forces for a study into the long-term effects of traumatic brain injury. Anne-Marie spoke with Associate Professor Nicola Starkey and Senior Research Fellow Dr. Kelly Jones to find out the long-term effects of that bump to the head.
Nicola Starkey, Dr. Kelly Jones, welcome to Central News. Nicola, the University of Waikato and AUT have joined forces to continue a study on traumatic brain injury. How is a traumatic brain injury defined?
For our study, we've defined traumatic brain injury as an acute brain injury as a result of mechanical force to the head. So basically a bang on the head or being hit by something. And we've included brain injuries from the very mild end, so things as minor as concussion and people not even being knocked out. So people feeling dizzy, confused, not remembering the event that, when they actually had the injury. So really quite minor symptoms of a knock to the head. We're not just talking about people who were taken to hospital as a result of a brain injury. We're talking about injuries that occur sort of every day where people don't necessarily seek hospital treatment.
Kelly, who is most at risk of suffering a TBI?
Yeah, certainly. When we look at children with traumatic brain injury, and certainly what we've found in terms of incidence, there are peaks during the preschool years, and then again adolescents also are at high risk of having a traumatic brain injury. So certainly those age groups are of particular concern.
What are the common ways a TBI occurs?
We spend a lot of time looking at how people sustained the injury, the mechanisms of the injury, and certainly amongst children, falls with a predominant form of injury. So it might be falling off equipment, fall off a bike, tripping over. And so that was a very key finding.
Is there a gender or an age group that, like for instance, young men who are more in danger? I'm just thinking sport, the high contact sport, rugby springs to mind as well. And it's been quite topical too of late.
I think the highest risk age group are actually sort of older teenage males. And I think we think it's due to a combination of, as teenagers get older, they start taking more risks, they start driving cars, increased use of alcohol and more fights. So sort of the teenage years, between about 15 and 25, the males are most at risk. So once someone's reached about age 15, the incidence in males is actually much higher than in females. So
does every mild knock to the head have a lasting effect?
That's a very good question. Certainly there can be a lot of variability within groups of people that have perhaps had a mild TBI, and that's something that we're particularly interested in looking at. The majority of the group of people that we're following after injury have had a mild TBI. Previous research has focused on people that have presented at hospital, so people with the more moderate to severe injuries. And we've got the opportunity here to look more closely at a population level. How does mild TBI impact areas of functioning?
what are the effects, or what are, in an adult for instance, what are the effects or the symptoms of a concussion? How do they show up in an adult?
I think, well, the acute effects of concussion, most people will probably be familiar with. It tends to be loss of consciousness, feeling dizzy, confused, and quite often vomiting.
Is that extreme though?
No. That's actually quite common. So even a fairly, particularly in a sporting context, any type of, quite often knocks to the head do result in nausea and some type of memory loss and seeing, you know, sort of the feeling of seeing stars. You know, you bang your head hard enough that you actually makes you cringe and you see stars. In terms of the longer term effects, it can, or from a mild injury, it can lead to something called post-concussive syndrome, where people get ongoing symptoms of fatigue, depression, tiredness, headaches, difficulties concentrating, lack of memory, those types of things. And quite often this can be, you know, sort of a month after the event or even longer. And people quite often don't realise that the two things are linked, that actually these symptoms are linked to the injury that they had, you know, some time before.
I'm even thinking in the classroom, you know, those children that all of a sudden their behaviour might change, and perhaps there was a knock to the head in the playground that went unreported.
Absolutely. So I think often there's not that connection made between perhaps a quite mild injury, which might be quite overlooked, but then it may be that it's associated with impacts in the classroom, for example, in terms of behaviour, learning, social functioning. So that's something that could be important to at least have that awareness that a mild injury can have implications.
And hopefully this study is going to increase that awareness. It's launched on Tuesday and at the University of Waikato, and we look forward to hearing more about it as it goes on. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After the break, a patient gives something back. Welcome back to Central News. The District Health Board have been doing patient surveys, and a former patient, Trevor King, tells Hillary he wanted to take part in the survey and he believes it would help the DHB.
So why did you want to take part in the survey, and do you think that it will ultimately help the District Health Board?
Well, first off, I thought about this, and because I was a recipient of a aorto heart valve, and there were so many people involved in this, I thought it'd be good for me to give a little bit back for that, what people had done for me.
Can you tell me about when your health issues first started?
Yes, I was living in Kaihu, north of Dargaville. I was at the age of 10 or 11 in the 1940s. And I found I had pains in all my joints of the body. I went to the doctor, my father took me to the doctor, and it was told to me then that I had rheumatic fever. It was a very painful process I went through. I can recall my father carrying me down to the ambulance when I had to go to Te Kaupere Hospital in Dargaville. And I couldn't walk. And the thing was, when I got to the hospital in the 40s, virtually the only cure they had was penicillin, which had only just come onto the market. With the penicillin, I found that I was allergic to it. My face swelled, blew up, so that was the end of the penicillin. My body at the time was in great pain on every joint. The joints were inflamed and my body was very overheated. So what they used to do was rub me down with methylated spirits, which was very refreshing until it hit certain parts of the body. But because of the relief, it was a good thing for me.
What are your thoughts of this dreadful disease ever returning?
It is a thing that I've thought about many times, and I think that to have to go through the pain again, to be immobilised, would be very hard. Admittedly now I think they got other cures, so it wouldn't be as bad as it was in the 40s.
There has been quite a rise of rheumatic fever recently. What are your thoughts about that?
I think the country has been more schooled on it now, even though it's still there. But I think we have a better hold on the disease at this stage. And it's good to know that my problems are able to be cured a lot better.
And for more information, you can head to bopdhb.govt.nz. Now, taking a look at the Waikato weather, Hamilton, your Tuesday is looking like you're going to have cloudy periods with northeasterly breezes, a high of 21 and a low of 13. Paeroa, cloud developing with a high of 21 and a low of 14. Matamata, you're in for cloudy conditions with a high of 19 and an overnight low of 15. Te Awamutu, cloudy periods, northeasterly breezes, a high of 21 and a low of 13. For Tokerua, cloudy again with a high of 18 and a low of 12. Taking a look at the Bay of Plenty now, Tauranga, you're in for increasing cloud with northeasterly breezes, a high of 20 and a low of 17. Te Puke, cloudy with 19 and a low of 15. And that's Central News for tonight. Make sure you like us on Facebook and let us know if there's news or an event in your community that we can support. Thanks for having us at your place. I'm Wayne Douglas. Ka kite anō.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.